So today I'm going to cover how to continue creating animations and using the trace function with points. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to be here on geogebra.org/classic. And once you have that, you click here on the three lines and you will sign in. When you select sign in, it will give you a window that looks like this. Automatically just press, ignore this, automatically just press on Google, select your LAUSD account, and it will sign you in. You know you've done this correctly because when you click on the three lines and you go to the bottom, you'll see your username for LAUSD, or you'll see your actual first and last name. The next thing I like to do is I like to get rid of the axis and the grid. So to do that, I click here where this triangle and circle section is, and I click here to get rid of the axis, and I click here and then here so that I can go ahead and clear the screen. Alright, once that's done, I usually leave this open. Begin by creating a segment. So here is your tools. Anytime that you're done using a tool, you always go back to the arrow. So first thing I'm going to do is click on this tool and select a segment. I'll place it here relatively to the center of my space. Click and click. Once I have that, I'm going to include a point that I'm going to set in the center here. I'm going to move this around this a little bit, so I'm going to go back to my arrow and I'm going to move this back and forth. Notice how the point is stuck on the segment. I can't lift it up, I can't bring it down, and that's exactly what I want it to do. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to include a circle. For this, I would choose the second choice, which is center and radius. Now, something I want to point out: every time I select an object, whatever it is, you're going to see down here a little gray box show up, and it gives you kind of a preview of how the button, or how the, let's say, the different section works. Okay, so if I do this one, it says circle with the center and radius, select the point and then the radius. So I'll click here, select my point, this is the point I want, and the radius I want to use is 3. I press OK, and I go back to my arrow, and I'm going to test to see what effect that had on my circle. The circle is not supposed to get bigger. I have already said it has to measure 3 units, and it's not going to get past that. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add an additional point, and I'm going to put it purposely on the edge of this circle. Now, I don't want to put it at the intersection on either side where the line and the circle meet, so I'll put it up here somewhere. I just have to make sure that it's touching my circle. Now notice the change. Here I have an arrow. When I go and I hover over the circle, that turns into like a hand. That's where I want to place it. And go back to the arrow. Here I move this around. Nothing happens. It just spins around, similar to what happened with this piece. It just moves back and forth. So it has a determined pathway. That's basically what we would say. Okay. The next thing I want to do is I want to create some animation buttons. To do that, I will select this here, followed by the button key. So clicking on the button key, and I'll space it at about here on top. This one I will call run. It's almost like I want to run the program, and my code is going to be start animation, one word, then parentheses, and the points I want to use are going to be C, comma, D. And I'm going to press OK on this. And notice that C and D are these 2 points that follow a pathway. Okay? So next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to place right next to it, I'm going to place an additional button. And that one is going to be called my stop button. Now the code starts the same way. Start animation. Except that this time I'm going to say that this is a false statement. And what that does is it tells the computer stop moving. Basically, that's all it does. Press OK. And because of something I want to make sure I do, I'm going to add a final button, and this is going to be called Clear Trace. Now for that one, the code changes to capital Zoom in, and I put these fancy brackets looking things, and I'm going to call that the number 1 with the same fancy brackets, and I press OK. Once I have that, I'm going to get rid of certain elements. So to do that, what I'll do is I pretty much want to hide everything except for C and D. So click on each of these little circles, get rid of A. Oh, sorry about that. Forgot something. I gotta go back to my arrow tool so I can start choosing things. Get rid of B, get rid of the segment. I want to keep C, I don't want to keep the circle, and I want to keep D. So I'm going to move this over, and right now this should only move back and forth. The run, if I press run, it should start moving, and that's the effect that I see. If I press stop, it should stop. Clear trace right now does nothing. So I'm going to click on C, move it all the way to the side, move this up to the top so that it looks like they're above each other, and now I'm going to set up my trace. Now to do that, I'm going to go here on this settings tool, click there, and I'll select point C. Notice what my section here looks like. As soon as I press C, it changes, gives me the C, and what I want to do is I want to select this item here called Show Trace. Now while I'm here, I also want to make sure that this point is moving back and forth. So I'm going to go to my tabs and go all the way across to where it says Algebra. In that section, I'll see something called Repeat, and this kind of tells me how this is moving in terms of the behavior it's going to have. The choice I want to make is the word oscillating. Oscillating is fancy language for move back and forth. So I'll select this, and all of this happened. Let me go back all the way back to basic. That's where I was originally. All of this happened to point C. Now what I'm going to do is I'll go over and select point D. Notice how the name changed, and the only thing I'm going to do here is just press Show Trace. I'm not going to change anything on the other settings. Now here's the deal. As soon as I press X, this will now have some kind of effect. So let's take a look at the effect. I press X, and here I can now see my trace feature. It's literally tracing where the points are. So I will stop it, and I will now see what the effect is when I press Clear Trace. It's gone. If I move this back, I can see that the tracing follows. I can still press Clear Trace, and then I can run it, and I can also mess with the speed. So for example, I'll make this line go a little bit slower, just so that I can see what the effect is. And something else I should be able to see, I should be able to see C bouncing off and coming right back. If I speed this up, then my picture should change as well. So the tracing changes. I am allowed to clear the trace midway, kind of start fresh, just to see what the effect will be. Notice that the picture changes, and all I did was change the speed. Okay. Now that I'm happy with the results that I have, I can always change the speed, I can always change other settings. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save it, press the 3 lines, click on Save, and this one is going to be called Run Stop Clear Trace Activity. Now I want to make sure that this says that it's going to be shared, so I'll press here, Save, And the reason I want to make sure that it is shared, let's just make sure this actually saves, is that as soon as that happens, I'll click on share, and it's going to give me a code, a link. So this is what I submit on Schoology. So I copy here, and then I would submit it on Schoology. Okay, and that's it. Hope this made sense to you, and have a good one. Bye.